Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Monday. Welcome to another edition of Mean Streets here live on our FTN Network YouTube page. Chris Meaney hanging out with you. Hopefully, everybody had a fantastic weekend. We got a lot to get to here on this show today. If you are watching live on our FTN Network YouTube page, you guys know the drill. Do me a solid. Smash that like button. You have any comments, any questions, leave them there in the comments section. I will get to them towards the end of this show. I do want to address a few things here early and get after it off the hop. And if you are watching, just leave the comment there. If you're hanging out on our, on the Spotify machine or iTunes, you guys, and again, know the drill. Hop on over to our FTN Network YouTube page. Do me a solid. Hit the like button. Subscribe to our FTN Network YouTube page. We got a lot of content every single day coming your way. And you can leave the comment or the question there. You can also reach out at Chris Meaney on Twitter or Mean Streets FTN at gmail.com. George, you hear me okay? I think my headset has gone bonkers, but you hear me good. You're all right. Here we go. So if it is iTunes and Spotify where you listen to Mean Streets, again, another solid, just rate, review, subscribe. You can give me 1-star, comment, tell me I suck, like more bats, less bats, better picks, better advice. I'm all for that. But it would help me and Mean Streets out a little bit. Tomorrow, Dangle Bad Sally, only a couple games on the ice tomorrow night, but we're still going to come after you guys. So same sort of thing over there. Rate, review, subscribe, smash the like button again. So we're going to get after it today. We want to talk about the Monday Night Football game between the Lions and the Raiders. We got some picks and some props. We want to take a look at all the takeaways from week 8, some different snap counts, some surprises. It was a pretty decent week it's like a nice bounce back. I was feeling pretty blue last week of the awful week 7 that I had. Just nothing went my way. Only on the wrong side of 3 sides yesterday. And a couple surprises. I didn't have Kansas City winning the game, and I wasn't on Tennessee and Carolina, but the spreads were pretty solid. We had Minnesota as one of our locks from the betting show. We talked about the Bengals not just covering, but winning that football game, and now the Niners have lost 3 straight. We're going to talk about the NFC and the AFC playoff picture. We're going to take a look at the MVP odds. And towards the end of the show, we'll have some hockey picks. There's 9 games on the ice. It's an odd week. Finally, the NHL mixing it up a little bit. It's always just jam-packed on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So Monday, we have a busy slate in the NHL, so I have some picks for you guys as well. Fantasy Hockey article is live over at FTN Fantasy every Sunday, talking about my favorite fantasy hockey waiver wire pickups, players to drop, buy, sell, attacking the schedule. We gave a lot of love again to the Philadelphia Flyers in that top line of Cam Atkinson, Owen Tippett, and Sean Couture, really checking a lot of boxes for us in DFS and in the betting world, and they can help you out in the fantasy hockey world. The Flyers are in action tonight. They also play on Wednesday and Friday, a home and away double hitter there with the Buffalo Sabres. And the days that you want to attack to get the best of your opponent in fantasy hockey will be, I suppose, Tuesday with the 2 games, but having some players on Wednesday and Friday and Sunday, really beneficial, I think, this week into week 4 of the fantasy hockey season already. And my DFS NHL article is live over at ftndaily.com, talking about some of the favorite plays that I have for tonight in DFS. So a lot on our website and a lot of free links as well. So if you're looking to be part of the DFS family or the betting package, you can use promo code Meaney, save yourself a little bit of cash. The props were fantastic to start yesterday. We were really getting a lot of winners early and often. How about my guy, A.J. Brown, again, set an NFL record, 6 straight games of 125 plus receiving yards. It's just automatic right now with A.J. One of the catches of the year, certainly one of the better touchdown catches of the year yesterday with the one hand and kept his feet in bounds. He is cooking at the moment, playing really good football. And then the later half games are a bit of a stinker. I had Pacheco for rushing yards and rushing attempts. I was in on the rushing attempts from Kenneth Walker as well. I did think it was a little bit risky coming off the injury, but we saw a little bit of Charbonnet. We'll talk about that backfield in a little bit. But before we get to some of the takeaways, the NFL playoff picture, the Super Bowl odds, the NHL picks, the NHL props, also game 3 of the World Series tonight in the NBA. A lot happening. October is fantastic. Anybody dressing up? Anybody going trick-or-treating, maybe with their kids? Maybe you don't even have any kids. You just want to decorate the house. I know a lot of people like to decorate on the outside, scare the kids. I'm all about scaring the kids. I live in the boonies. I'm kind of tucked away, a little bit of privacy. So unfortunately, we don't really get any kids, and I'd love to. I'm a big Halloween guy, right? I probably should maybe dress up more for you guys, but yeah, I think it's it's fun for the kids, and that's what it's all about. And I'm not a big scary movie guy. George, you watching any scary movies these days? No, he's not. No, 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 no. They got the Mutombo. No scary movies. No scary movies for you. Yeah. I mean, on the Edge, there's a 24/7 Halloween TV special. I've been watching a little bit of that, so it just rotates through some of the like How I Met Your Mother, Friends, like Halloween. Oh, by the way, Matthew Perry, so sad, man, so sad, breaks my heart. But yeah, some of the TV Halloween specials that they go through, some of the different sitcoms and the Halloween episode, and they roll through them all, is pretty good. I saw Stranger Things the other day there. Prop God, welcome in. Hopefully you had a really good week. We're going to talk about tonight here in a second. Bruzeese 91. Let's go Means. Win us some money, brother. We'll try to do our best. Welcome in. I call you Perk. And we got Daily Handle Jordan Allen in the house. And we got 5 stars. We gave ourselves 5 stars. That's right. We're looking for you guys to give us 5 stars here over at iTunes Mean Streets. Let's get after tonight before we recap what was. We need to finish off week 8 and get into week 9. Monday Night Football tonight in Detroit. The Lions heavy favorites here, -7, 7.5 in some spots. Use a prop shop parlay calculator to get the best possible number. The total is 47. On the money line, I'm seeing the Raiders at +310, and we have Detroit at -330 on the money line. I think the Lions win this game. I think they win it by double-digit scores. I'm going to take the Lions. I took the Lions in my own spread to cover this number. I'm not teasing it down, not jumping in on any money line stuff here. I do think Detroit will win this game by a touchdown. I think they win it by 10. The defense has been really good, right? They're one of a couple teams inside the top 5 in total DVOA offense and defense as well. They had a bit of a mishap last week, right? They got their butts whooped, and that's going to happen. You know, they were second game on the road in a row into Baltimore, and the Ravens just smacked them in the mouth and crushed them. But I'd like a bounce back spot here for everybody in Detroit. I mean, Jared Goff as well. Jared Goff, he's juiced at -150 for 2 passing touchdowns, but I'm buying a little bit of the juice in the FTM bet tracker as well. He's been fantastic at home over the past couple of seasons. This season, he has a 7-2 touchdown interception ratio, with a 73% completion rate in the 3 home games. On the road, he's got 4 passing touchdowns and 2 interceptions and a 65% completion rate. Last year, Goff rocked a 23-3 touchdown to interception ratio at home, and on the road, 6 passing touchdowns and just 4 interceptions. He's been much better in a dome. I'm buying, if you could buy Goff anywhere in season long in terms of like a super flex, right? I think he's fine to roll out as a guy, in standard QB1 leagues as well. And he may be hanging around the waiver wire if anybody was just, frustrated with last week against Baltimore. The schedule moving forward, like you want to talk about domes and the splits that I just shared with you guys. So this week at home in the dome, next week bye, right? He could get dropped. Maybe an owner's willing to just move on from him. They need wins now, and they don't want to deal with that bye and roster 2 quarterbacks out of the bye in Los Angeles to take on the Chargers. And that secondary is let's not get too excited about how they played last night. They took care of a Bears team that's just not really good at the game of football. But in Los Angeles to take on the Chargers in a dome, that at home against the Bears in a dome, then at home against Green Bay in the dome, off to play the Saints in week 13. Tough matchup. Saints defense, pretty solid. But again, in a dome, then in Chicago is the only remaining game of the fantasy football schedule for Jared Goff where he has to play outdoors, and that is against the Bears. So it's still a pretty good spot. Week 15 at home against the Broncos. Week 16 in Minnesota against the Vikings. Tough news. I mean, Kirk Cousins, he was playing really good football. Vikings currently in a playoff spot. Torn Achilles, really tough spot for him and everybody else in this offense. TJ Hawkinson has been fantastic this season. Jordan Addison had another really good game. KJ Osborne had a great game. Now they got to deal with a massive downgrade at the quarterback position moving forward. But nonetheless, the defense, it's a good spot for Jared Goff. And then week 17 is a tough spot. But hey, if you get there, you're in the championship and you can make whatever move you want to make at that time. But that is in Dallas to take on the Cowboys week 17. So a really good spot, a good schedule rather for Jared Goff and the Dallas and the Detroit Lions. I'm looking ahead at this schedule. I don't see too many losses here. It'll be a tough game against the Chargers and the Saints, and then a tough one against the Dallas Cowboys. So a big W tonight will get them to 6-2. We'll take a look at the playoff picture in a little bit. Here's some props this evening that I am feeling. So there's two players that are not on this board that I have in the bet tracker that I like. It's just we're drinking a lot of juice with those guys. The one was Jared Goff for 2 passing touchdowns, and we talked about the home and away splits and him bouncing back here this evening against this Raiders team. And the other one is Devontae Adams at -145 for 6 grabs. Devontae Adams has just been a target hog. He's among the leaders in air yard percentage and target percentage. And really, I've just seen Jimmy G throw to 2 guys. Now, there are some other players on this board that I like here this evening. We can start with Josh Jacobs at over 19.5 receiving yards at -110 over at Bet365. He has 26 grabs on 39 targets through 7 games. That's 5.5 targets and 3.7 catches per game. He's top 19 receiving yards in 4 of his last 5 games. The Raiders are big dogs here, so we could see a couple checkdowns from Jimmy in this game early and in this game in the second half. This number for Jahmyr Gibbs has moved considerably. I don't see anything under 102. And I'd maybe shy away from this right now. I on the board for those that are hanging out on the YouTube page, we have Jahmyr Gibbs for over 95.5 rushing and receiving yards combined at -115. The perks of being subbed over at ftmbets.com, you get notified right away when we make a pick. We talk about it in the Discord. We discuss, line movement, jump on this early. And for Jahmyr Gibbs last week with no David Montgomery, and Montgomery won't play again here tonight, he had 68 yards on the ground on 11 carries. He had a rushing touchdown. That was a really tough matchup against the Baltimore Ravens. This one here against the Las Vegas Raiders is just not the same. They've allowed the 6th most fantasy points to running backs. They have struggled considerably, right? They can get some pressure on the quarterback. Like, they have some dudes that can really get after it. But overall, this is a team that has struggled. They've allowed the 7th highest opposing completion percentage, right, to opposing quarterbacks. They've allowed the 9th most rushing yards to running backs, the 6th most fantasy points to running backs, the 10th most yards per carry to opposing running backs as well. So I think that Gibbs probably gets into that 15 plus carry range here tonight, because last week was just an absolute blowout, and it was just 11 for 68. And we did see in week 3, when there was no David Montgomery, he had 17 for 80. So even last week, struggling to gain momentum on the ground, he busted off a run and got a touchdown late. He had nine catches on 10 targets for 58 receiving yards. So I'm shying away. Like, now the number is so high that I would probably just lean with the rushing yards. But the reason I went with the 95 is because he's just one of those backs where he's going to be involved on the ground and through the air. And maybe he struggles on the ground. Maybe we see Dan Campbell do some weird things out of the backfield. It's possible, but then the targets will come for him. So I think he's going to have 4 catches. I also have that in the bet tracker at around -136 for 4 grabs. I think he's flirting with about 20 opportunities here tonight. That's carries and targets. So we have him projected for over 100. So the number now at 102.5. Let me give you guys a live number here for Jahmyr Gibbs and just double check the projections to see. So 70 rushing yards has really jumped up. I'd lean to the over on 70.5. I think he lives in the 80s here tonight. And if the defense does get after Jimmy, which I do expect them to get after Jimmy and force a couple turnovers and put him on his butt, they can be in a good situation to maybe run out the clock. The total rushing and receiving now is, it's not bad. Now there's PointsBet is offering 100.5. 100.5. So we really got in on this 95.5. So maybe if you don't feel too comfortable with that one, our projections have them for over 104. So I still have the lean to the over on the 100.5, but I like Jacobs at 19.5 receiving yards here. Sam Laporta, just riding this out with Sam Laporta. There's a couple tough matchups for him over the past couple of weeks, certainly against Baltimore. And I know he was not 100% over the past couple of weeks. He wasn't on the injury report all week, and he still had 52 receiving yards last week in what was a really tough spot. You see the number here, 43.5. This is a number that he's cleared in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of his past 6 games. I like Sam Laporta. I like him to find the end zone. Jacoby Myers here is the one that's juiced up the most on this board, but it's one of my favorite plays. In fact, all of these plays are 2 plays for me in the bet tracker. Over 4.5 receptions for Jacoby Myers. I think this number is over at Bet365. Jacoby, 5+ grabs in 5 of his last 6 games this season, averaging a healthy 9.3 targets per game. And then we're having a little bit of fun here with Michael Mayer / Michael Meyer. I got George to put, here we go. Look at this. 'Tis the season. Honestly, my favorite of the 3 may just be a stab at the touchdown at 4-1. A stab at maybe 2 touchdowns for him. And I am saying stab. But the over 20.5 receiving yards at -125, I think this number has moved to 21.5. Look, what I will say, a couple things. So Mayer's played 71 and 81% of the snaps over the last 2 weeks. 10 targets, 7 grabs, and 88 yards over that span. He had a career high 6 targets, 5 grabs, and 75 receiving yards 2 weeks with Jimmy Garoppolo under center, who is cleared to go tonight. And this actually is a really good matchup. The Lions have allowed 62.7 yards per game to tight ends. It's the second most in football, and 6.1 catches per game to the position, which is the third most. Only the Jets have allowed more touchdowns to the position than the Lions. So Michael Mayer trending up here, playing more snaps, running more routes. The over 20.5 receiving yards at -125. I like that one the best. That's the 2-unit play for me. We'll put the unit on the 2.5 receptions at -104. We'll put a half a unit on him to find a touchdown here at 4-1. Yeah, Jimmy G is throwing to Jacoby Myers, is throwing to Devontae Adams. And I like both of those guys in terms of their catch prop tonight. Little bit of juice. But let's not sleep on Michael Mayer. And like I said, 'tis the season for Halloween, and I love the board. So thank you so much for that, George. Have some fun here today. Anybody dressing up as Michael Mayer, maybe they want to put a Raiders jersey on as well. I love it. And out of all the logos and all the jerseys, that one feels the scariest and the spookiest. Black hole. Anybody been to a Raiders game? Like to go, but I've heard some crazy things. Raiders Nation, don't come at me. But Michael Mayer there. Let's see if he can have a game tonight. And a couple other touchdown props that I have here for this evening. Sam Laporta at +170, and then Mayer there at 4-1. And Jameson Williams, I was a little bit surprised. I think just Vegas kind of has a feeling with Jameson Williams, I guess. I know last week was a much tougher matchup for him. I put a little bit of a sprinkle on 8-1 last week for Jameson Williams, but today, the best I am seeing now is +235. That's over at Bet Rivers, Unibet. Caesars is hanging +230, FanDuel at 220, DK at 210, BetMGM at 200. Again, the prop shop is just so fantastic. 6 targets last week for him. Didn't haul in any of them against the Bucks. He had a touchdown, 2 catches for 53 yards. We haven't seen a whole lot of Jameson Williams in his NFL career, just limited to 9 games. He only has 5 grabs, but he does have 2 touchdowns. And, in college at Bama, he was just used deep down the field. He was a big play waiting to happen, really explosive, very boomer bust. But a guy that Jared Goff will take a couple deep shots with here this evening. So I don't mind maybe a long catch for Jameson Williams. It's just really risky to get involved. Like over 2.5 grabs at +140, I'm totally not in on. The over 24.5. If he's going to catch a pass, even if he has 1 catch today, I would say he has over 25 receiving yards. I say he probably has a couple catches today and over 56. But in college, that's all he did is he had a ton of 50-yard receptions that resulted in touchdowns. It just reminds me a lot of Deshaun Jackson. And I just think now, like, getting his feet under him, suspended to start the season, also dealt with an injury in camp, maybe a little bit more of an uptick for him moving forward. And this is an opportunity maybe to take some shots with him down the field, especially if their defense, the Lions that is, gets after Jimmy G. And that's kind of what I expect to happen here tonight. So taking a look at some people in the house, we'll see. Oh, man, Lenny. Oh, yes. Let's go, George. Oh, man. I love it, man. Having some fun here today on a Monday. And that's what sports is all about, is it not? Man, everyone gets stressed over these crazy things in life. George is watching Paw Patrol and different channels on Edge. What is this? What is this signing? Leonard Fournette signs with the Bills. What are we doing here, Buffalo? Come on, bats. Latavius not enough here. Did something happen? Did I miss something? Just passes physical. Great. He's not sitting on the couch drinking bats. Pass is physical. Did I miss something here with Latavius? I know 5 for 7, 4 for 8 over the last 2 weeks is not great, but what are we getting here out of Fournette? What does this mean for James Cook, a veteran running back now, probably the goal line back inside this offense? James Cook has just been a between the 20s runner anyways. Doesn't he just have one rushing touchdown? Latavius Murray leads the backfield in red zone rushing attempts here. What do we got? James Cook. Yeah, I mean, he's got 2 total touchdowns. This is, and I know it's just Fournette, and we can say that he's dust, quote unquote dust. We can be that person and rips Lenny and last year not super efficient, but didn't he have like 60 some odd grabs last year? He's been a big player in the receiving yard game. He's probably the best pass blocker now on the squad, and he's going to be the goal line back there. So this is, I don't know. It's not. I don't think it's great news for James Cook, even though I don't think Fournette has that much to offer. He will be a guy that I'll have a couple. I'll try to get a couple shares of when it comes to the waiver wire, but I'm not diving in. I'm not spending a ton of my fab. You're just going to hope as a Fournette owner that he just finds the end zone and he gets a touchdown. Interesting signing there. I guess they're out on Derrick Henry. There's been, some reports of Derrick Henry getting traded this week and potentially to the Buffalo Bills. We'll see what happens there, but a big Titans win. How about Will Levis and DeAndre Hopkins, ladies and gentlemen? Yeah, I'll take the L. Of course I had DeAndre Hopkins as a sit. And people are coming at me like on TikTok and IG, like the TikTok world out there is man, they're harsh. They'll come after you. And I deserve it. I'm here for it. But I can't suggest I'm sorry, I can't give that advice. I would have loved to have been on the right side of DeAndre Hopkins, but he had one good game this season, one good game. And there were reports that they were going to go Malik and Levis. So I just thought that was going to be a mess. And the Falcons have played pretty good. So Will Levis, a shout out to him. He's going to be a big waiver wire pickup this week. I mean, he had 4 touchdowns. He ran the ball 7 times. I mean, it wasn't really any design runs and I think a kneel or 2 there, but 11 carries and then 4 touchdowns for him, 19 for 29. Good stuff. I think the biggest takeaway here is that, hey, if you're a Hopkins owner, maybe this is going to turn in the other direction for you because Hopkins had 4 catches for $128 and 3 touchdowns. 3 weeks ago, he had 8 catches for $140. But let's be honest about DeAndre Hopkins here, guys. Like 6.6, 8, 2.5 the last time we saw him. I would consider selling high. I still think the Titans are a team that is probably going to still chip off a couple players here and there. Will Levis in a super flex league. Pittsburgh this week. You can toss on Pittsburgh, but they blitz more than anybody basically, and they can really get after the quarterback. So in Pittsburgh is going to be a really tough spot. In Tampa Bay, in Jacksonville, 3 straight games on the road there for Levis and company. But good for the Rook. Like to see it, man. Like when I heard the reports about him and Malik, I was like, why? Just like, let's see what they have in Will Levis. Let's throw him out there. And he leaned on his rookie. On his vet rather, and Hopkins balled out for him. So some good stuff there. I thought maybe a PI on Hopkins on that first touchdown, but it's all good. I would now consider sell high on both of them, and especially Will in a super flex in a redraft league there. First lost after 7 wins. What's this? No, Monty is pain. Oh, Detroit, right? You talking about the Lions? Means here we go. GM King. Not sure what that is. Packers tank. Man, Jordan Love, right? It was one of our locks, Minnesota on the money line. Had that one on the betting show, and it's really tough to. I steered you guys wrong again with Christian Watson. I didn't start him, and he should have been in the sick column for me. Jordan Love, man, and Aaron Jones. We had Aaron Jones as a bust. I wouldn't buy low on him. I got some snap count stuff to me that was pretty interesting this week, and those guys basically split. I mean, I don't think you can trust AJ Dillon. I don't think you can trust Aaron Jones. I don't know if it's going to turn around heading into the week. I mean, only the Cleveland quarterbacks and Brian Hoyer had a lower completion percentage than Jordan Love. It doesn't look good at the moment. The pace of play, the play calling, it's all ugly across the board. I'm not in on any Packers. And, unfortunately, just Watson is just not getting. You get some targets, you get some looks, but Love can't get him the ball. So that snap count for me was a big, 51% for Dylan and 51% for AJ. Tank Dell returned and played 78% of the snaps, which is the most of any Texans wide receiver. That stood out to me. Pierce had 43% of the snaps and Singletary had 40. So Singletary, was still hanging around, but it was flipped the last time we saw the Texans. Chuba Hubbard, 67% of the snaps, didn't run the ball all that well. Efficiency wasn't great. What do we got here? We got an MRI. Yes, torn Achilles for Kirk Cousins is confirmed, unfortunately for him. Oh, man, he's playing such good football too. But Chuba, Miles not touching the field. I don't know. Injury, just not being great at the game of football. Really over the past few weeks, Chuba Hubbard there at 67%. And wasn't efficient carrying the rock at all. It was really an ugly game. Carolina pulled out the win, right? Bryce 1-0 against CJ. Good stuff there for Carolina. Taylor, 61% of the snaps. Moss, sub 40% of the snaps. The backfield with the Rams, it was split. Did see a red zone rushing attempt from Henderson, and then they went to Royce Freeman, who had the touchdown. Henderson had a couple grabs. Really just that was the only reason he had double-digit fantasy points. Freeman played 53% of the snaps, and Henderson played 47%. Stafford was struggling really all game. Dallas did a good job of eliminating Cooper Kupp again. That's 2 straight weeks for Cooper Kupp being eliminated in the offense. Stafford just missed him a bunch of times, a couple really bad throws, and they just seem to be off. But credit to the Cowboys and maybe a potential buy low opportunity for Cooper Kupp coming off those dud weeks. Stafford's really still just throwing the ball to 2 guys. And it's Puka and it's Cooper. But another couple weeks here of this backfield and Henderson and Freeman, these guys potentially splitting the backfield. I still lean Henderson over Freeman, but it's a flex thing at best. Cam Atkinson. I'll get to him in a little bit. Madison and Cam. I see on my sheet Madison and Cam, and I immediately think of Cam Atkinson for the Philadelphia Flyers, who's just in the waiver wire column in a sneaky DFS play tonight, potentially against Carolina. But Alexander Madison had 61% of the snaps. And I thought this was a backfield I was keeping my eye on this week because last week we saw Cam Akers kind of close out the game, looked better, I think he was more efficient. I believe he had more touches too. But this week, he took a bit of a back seat and it was Madison. But we'll see what this offense looks like moving forward without Kirk Cousins. Maybe they're going to have to change the pace of play, I guess, a little bit of how they play. Really pass happy. I think that they'll now try to lean on both of these backs, which I don't necessarily think is a great thing because neither of them have shown that they can be super efficient running the rock this year. And not crazy about the offensive line in Minnesota. Stevenson, 58% of the snaps. Zeke, 41%. Mostert had a touchdown, which saved the day, 56% of the snaps. We saw a little bit more from Jeff Wilson at 26%. A few more touches for him. Bijan Robinson, just okay. The matchup wasn't fantastic, but he did play 74% of the snaps. So that was interesting to see Van Jefferson lead all the wide receivers in Atlanta with 71% of the snaps and Drake London down to 54%. He did leave the game for a little bit. He took a big shot, so maybe that's something to do with it. Najee Harris at 52% and Jaylen Warren at 48%. So still just kind of this is what we've seen over the past couple weeks is basically a split. Warren continues to look better, in my opinion, looks fresher, moving the chains when he's on the field. But yeah, Tomlin's just got his guy, and his guy is Najee. But Mitch Trubisky now, maybe for the next little bit. Do we have any word here on Kenny Pickett moving forward? We saw Mitch throw to Pickens a little bit more towards the end, but we don't have much. It's this Thursday night football game too. I would expect him to probably be out of this game. Deontay Johnson has been good over the past couple, and I still like Pickens. He scored a touchdown, which saved his day, but it was really just a sloppy game, brutal weather. Pittsburgh offense. I'd like to see them become more pass happy. It just doesn't seem like that's going to be the case, especially now with Trubisky there. Jerome Ford, 33% of the snaps. Kareem Hunt, 36%, and Strong at 31%. So really a straight up committee there last week. And Ford surprisingly was able to play and was able to be active in that game, considering, the high ankle sprain and the reports that it was going to be like a 2-week thing. And maybe, he would miss a couple weeks with the high ankle sprain, but it was a full on we'll call it a committee, because Jerome Ford 9 for 37, Kareem Hunt 14 for 55, and then Pierce Strong 10 for 41. So I mean, they ran the ball a ton, and they're going to run the ball a lot without Deshaun Watson. And I don't know the extent of Deshaun Watson. I believe Cleveland's on a bye this week. Oh no, they're not. It's the teams that are on a bye: Detroit, Denver, Jacksonville, and San Fran this coming week on the bye. So yeah, Niners maybe a week to kind of get right here. I do want to talk about McBride in a second. Charbonnet 59% and Walker 41%. At this point, like, we can get into running backs and wide receivers in a little bit, but it's the same guys we've been talking about for weeks, right? Have these stashes like Roshan Johnson, like Charbonnet, like Tajay Spears in case Henry gets moved. Gus Edwards, 52%. Justice Hill, I could put him on the board if we want at under 60%, but we've been talking about him being a trap from the get-go. The Ravens may be in play for a running back, or maybe they feel like they're fine here with what they have. But does Tennessee trade Henry inside the conference like that? I don't know. But Gus, 3 touchdowns. They're splitting the backfield, but he's a lead there, and I think he's the goal line guy there. Outside of Lamar Jackson, Amari at 55% of the snaps, like not bad considering the matchup against Baltimore. Ingram at 38%. I'll get to McBride in a second. Pacheco at only 54%. A weird game for the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, it was reported that he was dealing with the flu. Finally lost a game to Denver, and his first losses in his NFL career on the road inside the AFC West. Remarkable. But the Broncos, man, a team that coughed up 70 points a few weeks ago, beat Kansas City and Mahomes, right? The NFL. Williams, Javonte, finally seeing him unleashed a little bit. It's taken some time here, and it's ever since he missed the game a couple weeks ago and he got back into it. So 10 for 52 when he missed week 5 against the Chiefs. Last week, 15 for 82, had 3 grabs. And this week, finally, not efficient, but 27 carries. Peyton, he is your best running back on the team by far. Let's use this guy. I know it's a brutal Denver team, and they're on bye this week, but I really like moving forward. Buffalo is a decent spot for him. It's just the offense, right? You know that the offense isn't going to be great, and they're not going to move the ball all that well. But I think the training wheels are officially off of him. Going to have a couple weeks off out of the bye. Really like seeing him get 63% of the snaps and 27 carries and 30 opportunities, 3 grabs on 3 targets. And I thought the other week Russell missed him on what would have been a touchdown to the house as well. But 63% of the snaps, Pirine 24, McLaughlin at 11%, Roshan at 36%, Foreman at 32%. We saw a lot of Evans in the second half of that game, especially in the fourth quarter. I just think the game was out of hand using all of these guys. I don't know, man. Foreman had a dud game. We see Herbert come back. I think a couple of people have asked me about this backfield. I think Herbert, when he comes back, gets the lead role again. And it's, Roshan goes back to, playing 25, 30% of the snaps, 5 to 7 carries, and a couple targets out of the backfield. But they need, Badgett did some good things. There's some okay throws for getting thrown into the fire undrafted. Okay things, but this offense is not much better, but it's got a higher ceiling. Of course, you guys are not breaking any news here. Like, Fields gives them a higher ceiling to move the football, but Roshan is a guy that would still stash, I would still hold, and I'll probably have him ranked ahead of Foreman next week. I'm not even sure of who they play, but I'll have them ahead. We have the schedule here in a second. McBride at 82%. The tight end position is it's a tough one, right? There's the elite guys. For those that have like Darren Waller, you got to move on from Darren Waller, right? Darren Waller, and again, who am I to say, but Darren Waller was a fade for us. It's, and I don't want to be too harsh and too mean here, but he just can't stay on the field. And when you hear things like, I don't know, load management for Darren Waller, like they have to be careful with practice reps. He can't, if he was healthy and we saw Taylor lean on him and we saw Daniel Jones first read in preseason, it's great to sit here and say that, if he's healthy, he's going to have 100 grabs, but it's just a big if. And the rest of the season, I would rank the tight ends. I'm still Hawkinson. I probably put Andrews ahead of Hawkinson now because of the injury to Kirk, but it's Kelsey, it's Andrews, it's Hawkinson, it's Laporta, it's Goddard, it's Kittle, it's Ingram. And then, Kincaid, and then I'd probably put McBride here. After that, it really is just kind of a crapshoot. You're chasing matchups, you're hoping to find a touchdown from the tight end position. I like Komet. Komet's a top 10 tight end. When Fields comes back, I like Komet. I'm pretty sure I mentioned Ingram. The touchdowns just haven't been there for him. Short A-dot stuff. I mean, Taysom Hill has to be in the conversation as a top 10 tight end the rest of the way. Definitely somebody that would roster over Darren Waller. I mean, really, I think you have to. Look at the last couple of weeks for Taysom Hill. 9 for 63, 2 rushing touchdowns, 5 for 18, a rushing touchdown. He's got 12 grabs for over 100 receiving yards over the last week. He's a weapon. He's getting in there in red zone packages. He should be considered the goal line back here. He's running routes. He threw a deep pass there to Shaheed. So he really is a weapon. And because he has tight end eligibility, I guess in most spots now, you got to view him as a top 10 tight end, like definitely over Waller. McBride over Waller. Ferguson had a touchdown. I like Ferguson. He's a top 12 tight end for me as well. These guys, like, let's see, guys that I just wouldn't mess around with anymore. Evan Ingram. I know David Njoku had a good game, 8 targets, 77 yards and a touchdown. He's on the cusp, like a borderline top 12. I like him more than Tyler Higbee. I'll say that. And I understand that Higbee had 5 for 45, but I just can't trust Higbee at the moment. Pratt Freiermuth is on IR, so you're not dealing with him. Kyle Pitts, right? It's just hot and cold, inconsistent. Luke Musgrave, right? Love. We just don't care about that offense. Hunter Henry, we just don't care again about the New England offense. Dalton Schultz, I kind of like. He's borderline top 12. Didn't do anything last week, but he had 3 games in a row with a touchdown. He's kind of on the cusp, but after Komet, after Ferguson, after Logan Thomas. So you think the hot waiver wire pickups here, at the tight end position, and McBride just with Zach Ertz on IR. And we did talk about McBride as a stash. And now everybody's going to rush to pick him up. So now you have to spend a little bit of fab. It is another tough matchup this week against the Browns. Heading into this week, they allowed the fewest fantasy points to the tight end position. But do you know the team that allowed the second fewest fantasy points to the tight end position heading into this week was the Baltimore Ravens. And McBride had 14 targets and 10 grabs and 95 receiving yards, and he had a touchdown as well. He played 84% of the snaps. So he's out there quite a bit. Kyler Murray, it sounds like we will see Kyler Murray in Arizona. Let's be honest about the Cardinals. I'm going to call them the Diamondbacks in action tonight. The schedule moving forward: Cleveland, Atlanta, Houston, the Rams, the Steelers, the Niners, Chicago, Pittsburgh, just like a couple winnable games there. Having Kyler back, my thing with Arizona was when Kyler was ready to go, and around this point, is that Arizona would realize, we got a couple picks here. Maybe we need a new quarterback of the future, right? Kyler's not going to change the way that it's going to play out for them. Like, they're not going to all of a sudden win a bunch of games. He is going to make them better, and maybe they'll squeak out a couple wins. I thought that the possibility of shutting him down so they can secure lock the first pick or try to get that first pick, good quarterback class, new regime, coaching, GM, not married to Kyler. Maybe they're going to showcase Kyler here. Hey, he's healthy. He still has it. Good player. Definitely a top 12 quarterback in fantasy when he's active. Have him on your roster. I'd consider selling high in redraft leagues. I'd consider buying low in dynasty formats. I think that he is on a new squad next year. I don't know if he's a Falcon. I don't know if he's a Steeler. I don't know if he's a Viking. I don't know. I think he's on a new squad. I think Arizona's in the conversation for the top pick, and we're going to get this under 4.5 wins. Even if Kyler plays, we're going to get this under 4.5 wins. But McBride should be a guy that you pick up. The volume is going to be there. The opportunity is going to be there. He's a good tight end anyways. Like, sometimes it does take these rookie tight ends. Not everybody's, Pitts from his rookie season, Laporta and Kincaid we like moving forward as a top 8, top 7 tight end for sure. But we've seen now some volume 3 weeks in a row, like 25 targets for a tight end over the last 3 weeks. That is rare. You're not going to see a whole lot of that. And again, Kyler will help this team moving forward. So he's kind of the big waiver wire pickup this week. I want to show some of the playoff picture here since we're on it. Let's write down the timestamp here, and then we'll kind of get out of here with some hockey stuff. And you guys have any questions, we can address those questions. So AFC playoff picture here, the Chiefs and Taylor Swift and Kelsey there, 6-2. I guess the T Swift not being in attendance was the reason that Swift or that Kelsey didn't have a great game and the Chiefs lost. That's what I'm assuming. That's what NFL Network tells me. Chiefs at 6-2, the Dolphins at 6-2, the Jags at 6-2, the Ravens at 6-2. Oh baby. All right, we got ourselves a race, and it should be really good. I think the Ravens may be the most complete team. I'm not going to overreact on Kansas City. They're fine. They're going to be fine. A bit of a hiccup on the road against a division rival. Mahomes feeling a little bit under the weather. The only thing I will say about Kansas City, and I did say this last year, and it didn't really matter, is that they need a number. They need a number two. They need a number one wide receiver. They need a number two for when Mahomes and Kelsey just can't get it done. Like, there's only so much that these guys can do. The game plan against them, the game plan against the Chiefs is to try to limit Travis Kelsey. They need somebody else to step up. We've seen Rashee Rice 3 straight weeks now. We have hammered Rashee Rice's receiving yard prop, and we've hit it. He's had a couple touchdowns. He's among the leader in red zone targets. He's among the leaders in yards after the catch. He's been really good for them. Mecole Hardman's not the answer. MVS is not the answer. Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, they're not the answer. No, Mahomes spreads it around. And Andy Reid's a fantastic play caller. The Chiefs are going to be fine. I would expect them to have a first round bye. They're going to be all right. But I think they need another wide receiver. And I think they know this as well, right? They drafted Sky Moore. They acquired Kadarius Toney roughly this time last year. They acquired Mecole Hardman again. They drafted Rashee Rice. I don't know if they're a player for Jerry Jeudy or they're in for, I don't know. I'm just speculating and wasting your time at this moment. But they do need another wide receiver, but they're going to be fine. The Ravens are legit. Some people call, what heading into Arizona as big favorites coming off a smackdown against the Lions is like a trap game. They were fine. They got it done, right? Backdoor cover Arizona, don't like it, but the Ravens got it done. The Jaguars, still kind of struggling on offense, but Etienne is as a league winner. He's playing nearly 90% of the snaps. He looks great. We saw a nice game from Calvin Ridley. Keep in mind, perimeter wide receivers against the Steelers. They're balling out against the Jags, or against the Steelers, rather. Calvin Ridley, quiet game from Kirk. Evan Ingram catching a bunch of passes. They got it done, right? Now they are on a bye. Trevor Lawrence maybe get that knee right. We have them to win the division pretty comfortably, and we're going to get that at 6-2, and they're going to host a playoff game. The Dolphins at 6-2. Not really much to say. Just, we've seen they beat up on another brutal team. We've seen Tua now. I don't want to take too much away from Tua. He is the odds-on favorite to win the MVP. This offense is still really good. Tyreek Hill again, touchdown. We did nail Waddle on the SiriusXM Fantasy Show on the weekend. Waddle's 2 best games of the season have been against the Patriots, and guess what Bill does? Takes away the opposing team's best player. Did what he could against Tyreek Hill, still found the end zone. But Tua is struggling against quarterbacks or teams that can get pressure, and we've seen the Bills and the Eagles put Tua kind of in their place. But the Bills, big week coming for Buffalo against the Bengals Sunday Night Football. It's going to be an emotional game, of course, with Damar Hamlin. What happened last week in primetime, and that was just a very emotional game, and it's going to be an emotional one again this week as well with Buffalo and Cincinnati there. The Steelers and the Browns at 4-3, both teams really good defenses, both offenses just not really feeling them. The Jets and the Hunt at 4-3. The Bengals, right? The Bengals are coming. They started off slow, 0-3, got right out of the bye. Just Joe Burrow running around, taking snaps under center, not shotgun stuff. So he got right at the same time. T. Higgins, a little bit better of a performance there, George. We did have T. Higgins as a sit. Everybody chirped the hell out of me on TikTok. I'm not going to be that guy that goes back at them and chirps them back, but maybe I will. No, I won't. But T. Higgins, still maybe a buy low opportunity for him, but this Bengals offense is they're going to go on a little bit of a run here. I would expect them to make the playoffs over the Browns and over the Steelers. The Texans, the Titans, the Chargers, and the Raiders, all 3-4. Only team I believe in on that board there are the Chargers. So, the Jets, another win led by their defense, and Zach Wilson made some throws. We always sitting here chirping Zach Wilson, but he made some throws. He made some throws late in the game. He made some throws in overtime. made some plays, man. And so we got to give him credit. We be hard on him all the time when he looks awful, but he made some throws, and it was a good game from him. Yes, 12-time Grammy Award winner. Holy crap, Taylor Swift putting Travis Kelce on the map. On the map. Yeah, good for her. Now people are starting to listen to the New Heights podcast. Actually, they were the number one podcast before this Taylor Swift stuff. They were, and now they're just, man, that podcast is fantastic. I love the Kelceys, man. They're so good together. I love how much they care about each other, and like they just seem like good, genuine people. Definitely care a lot about each other. Like Travis just always talking about Jason, and the reason he wears 87 is because of Jason. The reason he's in the NFL, and the documentary, the Kelce documentary, is great. There's a lot of things I didn't know about Travis Kelce. That I forgot that. Actually, I don't even think I knew that he was kicked off the Cincinnati team university squad for smoking the reefer. And Jason talks about it and says he went to the coaches to give him another opportunity, another chance. And Kelce's going to go down as one of the best tight ends. And Travis is just so thankful for everything. It's just cool. Like, it's a nice back and forth. I love the ins and outs they talk about. In football, they talk about other teams, talk about their team, what went wrong, what went right. It's great. It's fantastic, man. And yeah, good for Travis and Swift. But here, what do we got? So I would say that it's easy to say now, but man, like Aaron Rodgers there with the Jets, they may have actually been a playoff squad. I know Rodgers is trying to get in and do what he can to get back in time, but I don't think the Jets are going to make the playoffs. I think the Bengals are going to get in, and I think the Browns defense is so good that they'll find a way to get in if Deshaun can give them something when he's back. Over in the NFC, hello. Thank you, George, for not putting Jalen and company on the board here. Already dealing with a knee injury. Stay off the weed. Stay off the man. George is killing it today for those that are hanging out on the YouTube page. Like, it's worth it to come over and pop on the YouTube page so we can get a few good laughs. Sometimes good, sometimes shit. NFC playoff picture here. Geno Smith and the Seahawks. We do have a sprinkle on Seattle winning the NFC West. We have that in the tracker. I didn't really expect this to happen or, have an opportunity after week 5, but the Niners have lost 3 straight games. Brock Purdy has turned the ball over a ton over the past couple weeks. Is it as easy as saying he is not the same guy with Deebo Samuel? I think that the numbers are, the sample size is just a touch too small. It's something that I talked about on the NFL betting show. I was on the Bengals. I was on them to cover. I was on them to win on the money line. And it was more about Cincinnati coming out of the bye and being healthy and Joe Burrow and company. But watching the Niners, man, CMC is great, right? He's setting NFL records. He's a touchdown per game guy. He's the man. Ayuk, good game. Kittle, good game. But it's been now Brock Purdy with some careless turnovers, right? He didn't have any turnovers when they started 5-0. He took care of the football last year in the regular season. Now there's some turnovers. And let's be honest about the defense too. The defenses, they're giving up big plays. They haven't been able to stop anyone in the secondary at the moment. Trent Williams being down, I think is definitely a big thing that's happening to the 49ers, the offensive line. But Brock has looked like a 7th round. Excuse me. Ooh.
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
A hiccup there for me / I think burp at the same time. And now trying to gather myself after that comment or after that video. But Brock Purdy has looked like a 7th round quarterback over the past couple weeks. So we will see what happens to the Niners. They got a couple tough matchups coming up here. So for those that are in on the Seahawks to win the division, this is good, right? Trending in maybe the right direction here. Geno Smith made some really nice plays. I just want to look on the fly actually to see what the odds are, the live odds of this division. You got the Eagles there at 7-1. The schedule is tough, right? They got a big game this week against the Cowboys in Philadelphia. That's a huge one for the division. You see the Cowboys at 5-2. If the Eagles win that and go to 8-1 and the Cowboys go to 5-3, I don't want to say that it would be a lock for Philly to win the division, because after Dallas, you have the bye, and then out of the bye in Kansas City, and they're out of a bye as well. We know how great Andy Reid is out of the bye. And then after that game, they'll come home, they'll play Buffalo, they'll play San Fran, they'll play Dallas again, and then they have to go to Seattle to play the Seahawks. So it is a really, really tough schedule. And if you're taking a look at that schedule and you're feeling the Cowboys, maybe you want to jump in on some odds right now for Dallas to win the division. I think that the Eagles will win the division. But if you want to jump in, you just want to have a little bit of a sprinkle. Let's see some live odds here for the Cowboys, because if they win this week, it's just, you're not going to get these odds. Plus 155. If they win this week, they'll be probably plus 100, maybe even favored. The Eagles at minus 200. Again, the schedule is pretty tough for Philly, and there's some tough spots for Dallas as well. The Seahawks, you can still get at 2-1. Wow. 2-1. That's almost better than what we got at the start of the season. And now they're tied for now they have the division lead. What's that all about? I think we have plus 230 in the tracker for the Seahawks to win the division. There's got to be a better number out there than that. Plus 250 at FanDuel for them to win the NFC West, and plus 250 at Unibet and BetMGM and BetRivers. So DK is the worst of the bunch at 2-1. I think the Niners probably find a way to right the ship, but the reason we had Seattle in there is I'm a believer in the defense and a believer in the draft that they had. I think it's a solid 1-2 punch on the ground. I think we'll see a little bit more Charbonnet, and maybe JSN gets a little bit more run here in the second half of the season as well. The Falcons at 4-4, the Niners and the Cowboys there in the wild card spots, and the Vikings at 4-4. Unfortunately for them, they're probably done now. I like the Saints. I had the Saints to win the division. I still like them to win the division. I think they have the best defensive squad. And although the offense has been very inconsistent for New Orleans, we did see Derek Carr go down in the game against the Packers. That's a game I thought that they should have won, and maybe they do without Carr there. But ultimately, I think, we're seeing Carr now maybe get a feel of the offense, Taysom the weapon. And when Chris Olave doesn't have the big monster game, you have Rashid Shaheed inside a dome and the speed and what he can bring to the table. And then also Kamara and Jamal Williams is healthy. So I like the Saints offense to get it right here in the second half to win the division. And again, we already bet them, but the live odds show at plus 145. I think that's pretty good odds at plus 145 to win the division. If they don't win the division, I think they get into a playoff spot here. And then it's just, I don't know. I think everybody you see on the left, what I will say, Eagles, Seahawks, Lions, Saints, Cowboys, Niners are in. And then it will be a dogfight for that final spot there between the Falcons, the Bucks, the Rams, and Commanders. And I'll say that the Falcons probably get in. Tough loss for the Bucks at home just a couple weeks ago against the Falcons there. Here are the live Super Bowl odds for you guys. Again, just a little timestamp here. Super Bowl. We got Kansas City as the favorites at 5-1. The Niners at plus 550. The Eagles at 6-1. The Dolphins at plus 850. Excuse me. The Cowboys at plus 850. The Lions at 10-1. The Ravens at 14-1. The Bills at 15-1. The Jags at 16-1. The Bengals at 18. The Seahawks at 35, and the Chargers at 40. Right off the bat, the Seahawks at 35-1, just a little bit of a sprinkle, right? I wasn't just drinking the Kool-Aid of the offseason. I'm just in on this team being good. And again, we already talked about them potentially winning the division. So at 35-1, I think a great little sprinkle there. The Bengals at 18-1, I really like. Cincinnati, I think, if you asked Andy Reid and Mahomes to tell you the truth serum, whatever, like 'tis the season, maybe we could just get them to put them up on a lie detector or something. I think that they will tell you the team that they're the most afraid of inside the AFC is the Cincinnati Bengals. I really do. Maybe they would say the Ravens because of how well they played. But they've owned Buffalo, and I think with Buffalo, Milano and White being out, just the defense just doesn't seem the same. So that would be the negative thing I would say about the Buffalo Bills. The Ravens are fine, but man, we've already seen Joe Burrow and this Bengals team beat Kansas City multiple times late in the regular season, in the playoffs, at Arrowhead, last year down to the wire again. That's the team that knows how to beat Kansas City. That's the quarterback in Joe Burrow and the head coach in Zach Taylor that know how to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. So I think at 18-1, I think it's pretty solid. And if they beat the Bills this week, which I'm going to be on them to beat the Bills this week. And if they beat the Bills this week, they're going to move to 14. They're going to move to 13. They're going to move to 12-1. So Cincinnati, Seattle is the small sprinkle, maybe 0.25 units here on the Seahawks. I'd jump on the division as well if you haven't already. The Bengals at 18-1. And that's probably it. The Eagles at 6-1 is a homer thing, but this team is finding ways to win every single way that they can, right? The kicker, the defense, Jalen's arms, Jalen's legs, DeAndre Swift, AJ Brown, where the Cowboys have mostly relied on their defense. I think it's one of those, the path inside the NFC is just so much easier. So maybe an opportunity to jump on the Niners if you want. But I think the better bet inside the NFC would be to take either the Eagles, the Cowboys, or the Lions, like one of those three teams. And I like Philadelphia. And, if they struggle here against good teams, you may get a longer number there. But having home field potentially at, right now being at 7-1 and the team having to come into the link and win the football game is a beneficial thing for Philadelphia here. If the playoffs ended today, we would see like Dallas and Seattle, Dallas on the road into Seattle. We would see Minnesota and Seattle. We would see the 49ers and the Lions. We'd see Dallas and Atlanta. It does seem like if the Eagles win this division, we could see, my predictions really would be Philly 1, San Fran finds a way at 2, and then we see Dallas at that 5 spot, and then having to go on the road to play the Falcons, but maybe going on the road to play the Saints inside the Dome on a team that's been really good against quarterbacks and get some pressure. It's not going to be a fantastic spot for the Cowboys there. So maybe the Lions to get that home field there and the Eagles to get that home field, but definitely an opportunity there. Okay, so let's we got some questions here for some people, maybe some starter sick questions, maybe some trade questions, and I think we've hit up on everything. Maybe we'll get out of here with a couple NHL picks for this evening. So what do we got here for some comments? Okay, Kyle Woods, what do you do with the Chicago backfield? Can it just be Roschon season already? Yeah, when we talked about some of the snap counts, there was basically a timeshare with Evan sprinkled in, all of them roughly at 30%. I think that, next week I'll have Roschon ranked ahead, and I would expect him to be the lead. But, if he struggles, we could see a little bit more Foreman in there. And it's just most likely going to be Khalil Herbert's backfield when he comes back. Unfortunately, Roschon just hasn't been able to take advantage of the opportunity, missing the back-to-back weeks due to the concussion. Maybe this is the week where he can have a great week and he can jump in there. If I'm late, Joey B, 40-1. What, we got some MVP odds here too, right? Yes, we do. Tua's the favorite here at 3-1. Mahomes at 4-1. Hurts up. This is wide open, by the way. This is completely wide open. Every time we've talked about a quarterback, they've struggled the very next game. We talked about Tua, struggle. We've talked about Mahomes. It's like, it's Mahomes, right? Yada, yada. But let's be honest about Mahomes. Like, I think he has the same amount of touchdown passes as Russell Wilson and more picks than Russell Wilson. If that's not something to kind of turn your head about, right? We have the perception of Mahomes and we get it. He's great. He's Patrick Mahomes. He's fantastic. But this isn't a Mahomes type season that we're used to seeing. He shouldn't be 4-1. He's 4-1 because if he's 6-1 and he's 7-1, everyone's going to bet him. And we know it's Mahomes. He can turn on in the second half. Everybody loves Mahomes, face the NFL. But he shouldn't be. Hurt should be ahead of him. Lamar should be ahead of him. Josh Allen should be ahead of him. Anyways, it's a quarterback award, but CMC at 20-1, Tyreek Hill at 40-1. Just because it's completely wide open at the quarterback position, we've seen some inconsistency from Tua, Mahomes, Jalen Hurts is turning the ball over. Trevor Lawrence doesn't have a ton of touchdowns. He's turning the ball over here and there. Josh Allen has turned the ball over. When I look at this list and this board, I see maybe an opportunity here for Tyreek Hill at 40-1, for CMC at 20-1. Maybe it will be a running back or wide receiver this year. Maybe Jared Goff at 35-1. Maybe the Lions rattle off a 14-win season. We just talked about their schedule at the start of the season in a dome. Maybe Jared Goff it will be in consideration. If he has a massive game today, he'll move up. I don't mind that 35-1 little sprinkle on Jared Goff. Joe Burrow at 22-1. Yeah, it's not too bad. That's a number there that I guess you got a little bit earlier. At 40-1, Jay North. I mean, yeah, I'd sprinkle on that. He's going to have to really ball out here in the second half because of the absolute atrocious start that he had to the season, but he looks healthy. We know that he has the upside to get it done. And if he does ball out in the second half and gets the Bengals into a playoff spot, there'll be a lot that will be said about that from Joe Burrow. So anyways, I look at this board and I see value with Allen, CMC, Tyreek Hill, Goff, and Joe Burrow. I mean, that's a lot there, but maybe a couple like 0.25. Maybe you spend a full unit. You go 0.25 on CMC, Goff, and Tyreek. Maybe get a little bit of Burrow there in your life. But it is completely wide open at the moment, and I like that. It's fun. It really is. In the NFL too, man. I think there's only a couple elite teams. The Niners, I still view them as an elite squad, but it's just really shocking to see them take 3 L's in a row. And then Kansas City lose to Denver. I mean, Philly and Detroit may be the two most complete teams at the moment. A couple more questions here, and then we're going to. So I don't know, Kyle, about that, about the backfield. I'd still stash Roschon. Are we in on Lenny? Calling me skeptical on him. Yeah, Tony Jones got signed to 2 different teams. Anyone touch Lenny? He's still viable. No, Reed. If you missed it earlier, we touched on this just a little bit. I don't know what Buffalo is thinking here. What I will say about this, again, I'll repeat myself, is that it may not be great news for James Cook. He wasn't a goal line guy anyways. He's a between the 20s runner. We've seen Latavius Murray. I think this is an upgrade over Latavius Murray. So Leonard Fournette is as a pass protector, as a goal line back, can do those things really well. He can catch the ball to the backfield really well as well. I think just like a veteran presence there. So I'm not going to be spending a ton of fab. I'm not going to be starting this guy. It's like a betting thing. Hey, maybe it was sprinkle on a touchdown, anytime touchdown. Maybe we get into some injuries and some bye weeks. It's like next man up type of deal if James Cook went down, or we wanted to put somebody in our flex when we get into like 4 or 6 teams on bye again. So it's possible that's the way you can go, but I'm not buying into Lenny. There's a reason he's been hanging around midway through. Here we are heading into week 9, excuse me. I think it's a sneeze. And now he's just getting signed. So no, I'm not. Let your league mates go nuts on Fournette if they want to in terms of fab. If you have a top waiver wire claim, you need some running back depth, I'd get in, but I'll probably just spend like $5 or $6. And I know that's going to not be, it's not going to be enough to get him. And maybe this is an opportunity of saying this to maybe buy on James Cook. Right? You could say 1 rushing touchdown. Latavius leads in red zone rushing attempts. Allen runs it in anyways. And now they just signed Leonard Fournette. You could spin it that way where you could get Cook as maybe your RB2. Daily handle with Jordan Allen. Mike Vegas told me to tell you the Saints are going to win by 7 points. It's a lock. No ands, ifs, or about it. Thinking to bet them to win by 14 points, but going to be safe in the back door. What is this? Next week? Tell Mike Vegas to put the pipe down. What do we got here? How do you like Bobo? Bobo at the moment, I mean, hey, he definitely definitely a buy. Stay off the weed, Mike Vegas. How do you you like Bobo? I mean, I don't think I like him as much as Field Yates. It's all Bobo talk. But hey, it just I just don't know how consistent he can be. Keeper leagues, dynasty leagues, yeah, get some shares. But I don't know, like Lockett and DK, they've both been nicked up a little bit over the past couple weeks. JSN not showing a whole lot. It's like a deep league stash, I think, really at the moment, to be honest. I know Lockett went down. Did we hear anything about Lockett? Maybe this is why you're asking. I know McCaffrey left with DK, left a little bit. I just looking here on the fly if there's any news. Just want to be up to date on absolutely everything if possible. No, we're fine. Lockett seems fine. Yeah, and I mean, there's going to be no consistency. What we saw last week with no DK, we saw the 461 and a touchdown, and just the 2 for 23 there for Bobo. Yeah, Taysom Hill is a good pickup. Yeah, he's a good pickup. We talked about him early as like a top 12 tight end. I still think I would rather, like, we got the elites, right? And Waller, forget about him. I still think I like Ingram over him. I like Kincaid over him. Definitely like Laporta over him. I think I like McBride over him too, and we could see that upgrade at the quarterback position with Kyler. But I mean, he's getting carries, he's getting rushing touchdowns, he's throwing balls, he's running routes. He might be better than Derek Carr at the quarterback position. Maybe give him more reps under center there. But yeah, he is a good pickup. I don't know if he's a PTP, a prime time performer, but he's a good pickup. Would you trade Olave at the moment? I think it's a bad time to trade Olave. I think I'm into buying low on Chris Olave. I still view him as a wide receiver too, and that's really all I ever viewed him as. I thought maybe ceiling to be a wide receiver 1. We saw the first 3 weeks were great from him, and the last couple have been pretty dud weeks from him. But I think the volume is what we have to take away from all of this. He's among the leaders in ADOT and air yards percentage. He's not catching a lot of these passes. 77 targets and only 44 grabs. Some of it is on Carr. Some of it's on Chris Olave. There seems to be a disconnect, but when the majority of your targets are like deep down the field, like you're not going to be able to haul in all of those balls. But over the past couple of weeks, 10 targets, 15 and 9, that's saying something. So I like the fact that he's still getting the usage. The touchdown ceiling is just not there for him. He doesn't get targeted inside the red zone. Michael Thomas is like their biggest wide receiver they have. And Juwan Johnson now healthy. And then we just talked about Taysom Hill, like running it in, Kareem Hunt getting red zone targets, or Alvin Kamara, excuse me. And then also Jamal Williams, who's a good goal line back as well, led the NFL in red zone rushing attempts and rushing touchdowns last season. So the touchdowns may not come for Chris Olave, which does, I guess, kind of hamper the ceiling. But I think it's a bad time to sell because I think the fantasy community is out on him. You got the Bears this week, you got the Vikings coming up, the fantasy football playoff schedule. You got the Giants week 15, which is nice. So I would hang tight if I could and buy where I can. Do you think Madison is over in Minnesota? I don't think he's over. I thought that there was a possibility that this week would be telling for sure, where Cam Akers overtook last week, but this week was really more Madison. I had the snap counts written down here. I think it was 61% for Madison and 24%, but I'm not into any of these guys. Now that Kirk Cousins is done, this offense is just not going to be any good. And I don't know. They've been pass happy. How can they say, okay, we're just going to lean on these guys because they can't get any efficiency with either of them. So I'm not into any of those guys. I don't want to be starting any of them moving forward either. The kicker Patterson from the Lions, what's the chances of him getting more than 10 points? I really hope so. I need him too, Mateo, tonight. I would say the chances of him getting 10 points tonight would be 68%, 69%. I missed an opportunity there. At 69%, he's just got to kick a field goal. Can he kick us a field goal? Right? I'd say the Lions get 3 touchdowns. There's 3 points. Kick a field goal. Can he get a 45-yarder? I don't know your settings. There's another 5 or 6 points there. Then he's flirting with double-digit points. We just need one field goal from him. I dropped McManus, and it drove me nuts in one of my leagues. Still had 17 points, but I dropped him for Dicker the kicker, who had 17 as well. Just need a couple field goals. I think he gets there. I mean, if you could trade Olave to St. Brown, would you do that? Trade Olave for Amon-Ra St. Brown? Yes. I would rather have Amon-Ra St. Brown. I would be surprised if anybody would be willing to do that. Maybe just the diehard Saints fans out there. So, yeah, I would rather have Amon-Ra St. Brown over Chris Olave. Mike Vegas told me to tell you the Eagles don't want to see the Saints in January. Okay. The Saints, that would be, I like the Saints. All this kicker talk, don't tell Jake. Yeah, I know, right? We can't talk kickers here on the show. I like the Saints. I like their defense. Believe in them. Like I said, I thought they'd be a playoff team. I thought they'd win the division. I still think they're going to win the division. I like the odds at 2-1 or plus 155 to grab them to win the division. And if you can jump in on that, why not? Why not get it done? I like the defense, right? Maybe the offense is showing us something, but that game potentially would be at the link. And Derek Carr struggles on the road. Derek Carr struggles on the road, outside of a dome, in cold weather. Man, I don't know the splits off by hand, but they're not great for Derek Carr in Philly at the link, and that wind and that defense and that pressure. They'll have to win a playoff game first, and they'll have to win the division first. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Enough with the Saints. Mateo, is Elijah Moore a drop since he's getting the punt returns? Yeah, he is. The targets were there to start the season for Elijah Moore, but the quarterback play is just so brutal in Cleveland, so you have to move on here. I just didn't think that the waiver wire stuff, because it's the same guys that we're talking about over and over again, but let's wrap up with this. And I do have a couple hockey picks. I'll just roll through some of the ownerships just in case people are in shallower leagues. To me, like Chuba Hubbard should be owned at 59% Yahoo. Rashawn Johnson should be owned and stashed. Like Rashawn Johnson, Tajay Spears, these guys should be stashed and rostered. Darrell Henderson at 45%, like he should be owned in more leagues. You can stop it with Jaleel McLaughlin. Charbonnet should be rostered because Walker could go down. We saw the snap count basically like 50-50 there. 5 carries for 53 yards, caught a couple passes. Like get these stashes in your life. Rashawn, Spears, Charbonnet. If Khalil Herbert was dropped, pick him up, maybe stash him. I'm not saying to drop Aaron Jones or AJ Dillon, but I don't care about these backs at all moving forward. Kareem Hunt, like, could you sell high in Kareem Hunt? I would do it. Miles Sanders, this guy can't touch your roster at all anymore. James Conner, can you stash him? Can you pick him up on IR? That's a decent one. Brian Robinson, maybe there's a buy low opportunity there for Brian Robinson. Other backs, like I don't care too much about Justice Hill. Jeff Wilson Jr., pick him up, right? You just want these home run threats linked to Miami. Achane, Jeff Wilson, these guys should be rostered. DeMarcado, like this is really not a whole lot there. You're happy at 20 carries for 78 yards. He's got another couple weeks to ride this thing out. Kenneth Gainwell is just like a next man up. Kelly, just a next man up. P. Ryan, we don't care about him. Freeman, I like Henderson more, but it's like a short-term thing here until Kyron comes back because he was just getting all of the work there with the Rams. Singletary, I'm not, it's like great, 10 for 30. Whoop-de-doo. So like you could put him on the list, but it's not a guy that you're really you're stashing or you're playing there. As for wide receivers, maybe we can find a couple here for you that are much better than Elijah Moore. So let's try to dig. Kendrick Bourne had another touchdown. We talked about him again last week. He's the only Patriot that I ever feel good about rostering, and he's just getting the targets and he's got a couple touchdowns on the season. Joshua Palmer may get dropped. He had the knee injury. He's got a tough matchup against the Jets, so maybe that's one we stay clear of this week. Rashee Rice, nice to finally see the ownership get near 70%. Josh Downs at 60%, 62%. What's happening here? This is a rock solid wide receiver 3 the rest of the way. Look at the last 4 weeks for Josh Downs. The targets 6, 8, 6, and 9. The catches 6, 5, 5, and 7. 1 game with 125 yards. 2 games, 2 touchdowns, 97 and 72. I mean, this double-digit fantasy points in a half-point setting in 4 straight weeks. 62% ownership. I don't know what's happening there. Romeo Doubs would be the guy that I like Watson ceiling high, but Doubs scores touchdowns. He's got 5 in the season, back-to-back. It's really just a flex desperation play. You hope that, he scores a touchdown. Look at the 9 targets, just 4 catches. Watson can't be trusted in your starting lineup. Jordan Love he just doesn't have it. I'm, a little bit sour now on KJ Osborne with the quarterback play. I've really liked Jordan Addison, maybe a sell high target. Unfortunately, it does really pain me to say that. Yeah, Jahan Dotson, another good week, 10 targets, 8 grabs, 108 yards. Maybe this is it finally, but I will say his 2 best weeks of the season have come against the Eagles. He's got touchdowns in each of those games, but it's really nice to see him have 18 targets over the last 2 weeks. And Curtis Samuel suffered an injury. Oh, Kendrick Bourne tore his ACL. How did I miss that? Forget that then. He tore his ACL and he's done. No, this is not next man up in New England. It just really isn't. I know that other guys are going to get opportunities here. Parker, Juju's been dealing with an injury. Douglas has kind of checked some boxes there. That's why Jalen Reagor played like 80% of the snaps, didn't do anything with them. Nah, not doing it. Brennan Cooks and Michael Gallup. These are guys like, you're talking about Elijah Moore. Like these are guys that maybe I would take some flyers on here down the stretch. You got the Eagles this week. They've really struggled against wide receivers. They struggled again in the game against wide receivers, Terry and Jahan Dotson. So you got Philly this week, then the Giants, Panthers. You got Washington, Seattle, Philly, Buffalo, and Miami. These are really good matchups for the Dallas Cowboys wide receivers moving forward. So maybe Cooks, maybe a Michael Gallup, like deep league, kind of like punts or darts. Quentin Johnston, nice to see him get 6 targets, 5 grabs, and 50 receiving yards. If Palmer misses a little bit of time, you could go that route. Not a whole lot here from Gallup, but just like a deep league kind of pickup there for you. Defenses, we're not going to talk kickers. Defenses to stream this week 10. Why is Cleveland only 70% owned? That's crazy to me. New Orleans against Chicago, 67%. That's kind of where I'd start. Maybe they are available for you. The Steelers at 59% ownership. They got a spot against the Titans. I like. You can look at the Falcons. The Falcons just faced a rookie quarterback in Will Levis and only had 3 fantasy points, but against the Vikings this week, they could be a desperation play for you. I like the Bucs against the Texans. They can get a few turnovers. They have 7 picks and 7 fumble recoveries so far this season. So they are, getting after the quarterback, making some things happen that way. New England against Washington, only because of the sacks, but not crazy about it. Howell got the ball out of his hands quick, and I don't even think he was sacked, maybe just once in that game. The Chargers, I just don't like their defense, even though it's against the Jets. It is an option. Cincinnati against Buffalo, we're not going to do that one, even though Josh Allen will throw a pick there. The Rams against the Packers, it could be depending on how deep your league is, maybe one that you can maybe get behind that way. Hunter Henry, no. Yeah, I missed this one. That's on me. I missed that injury last night. Cheers for Dotson. Hey, maybe it's something. Maybe it's a sign of things to come. Maybe you can start him. You can sell him if you want. I get it. Like Douglas, like somebody has to catch some passes there in New England. It's definitely better than what you got there in more, but I'm just not feeling this New England offense. I don't think there's enough there for Hunter Henry either. 15 plus points PPR setting. I say, yeah, this is what I expect from Laporta. I think Laporta finds the end zone today. And if he finds the end zone, you're going to get it, Edner. I think he has 5 grabs and 65 yards and a touch. That'll be enough. Even the 5 for 65, that's enough. That close in a full point for you. You want that touch. Yeah, he is. Zamir White would be the next man up if Jacobs gets hurt. An old little Yahoo trick for people is somebody on your bench that you're going to drop, didn't have a great game, suffered an injury. I always pick up the Sunday night backup running back, Leonard Williams, and the Seahawks guys. The Seahawks are making moves. I like them. Maybe we will get that division. Maybe they're making a couple more moves too, because they feel like they're in it. Decent defense. Whew, Seattle. An old trick for Yahoo. Been doing this for years. I think Yahoo's really the only place that you can do this. They don't lock benches, and you can pick up players. So I always pick up the backup running backs. I'd pick up Craig Reynolds. I'd pick up Zamir White. Sometimes I even go as far as pick them up like backup wide receivers, just in case anything happens. I don't want to be that guy, but injuries do happen. And then, if Jacobs went down today, then everybody be rushing for Zamir White. So I actually do this across the board in the late games. I pick up guys in the afternoon games, and if nothing happened, then I drop that guy, and then I'll pick up a Zamir White, a Craig Reynolds. And I did this in one of my leagues as a Montgomery owner last week, a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I'm just going to pick up. I had an empty bench spot. I picked up Craig Reynolds. So you have Craig Reynolds. I had him. Everybody's rushing the waiver wire to get him. The following week when Montgomery went down, I had him. It didn't matter. He didn't do anything. But sometimes it's nice to get ahead of a few things. Have those stashes this time of the year. Like if you are feeling like you're headed for a bye, you're cruising, it's never too early to plan ahead. Have a couple defenses, have the next man up, have these stashes at running backs, and you can start to look ahead at some of your playoff matchups. Things will change. We're only at the halfway point, but just because you're cruising doesn't mean you put the hands back of the head and put the feet up. You need to continue to plan ahead and continue to pick on your opponents that are near the basement and need desperation wins. This is the teams this week: Detroit, Denver, Jacksonville, San Fran. I would be looking to get Debo. Is Ayuk available? Is Calvin Ridley available? Christian Kirk? Don't care about anybody in Denver really besides Javonte. And then Detroit after this week, probably nobody would be available, but you got to see, like, if somebody had 1 win, 2 wins, 3 wins, and they had, Debo on their roster, like if you're in first or second, you can afford to grab Debo Samuel and just be patient with him to come back. Just little things like that. I got some hockey here on the way out for tonight. We have the Fantasy Hockey Waiver Wire article over at ftnfantasy.com, and then we have the DFS article as well. I'll read off a couple of my favorite plays here. Taking a look at sides, I like the Vegas Golden Knights tonight on the puck line at plus 110. These are the odds that I put in the tracker. It may have changed, but again, you have the betting package. You're notified. You get the picks right away. Discord channel, we talk about all that good stuff. So we have the Golden Knights. The Habs have actually played pretty well this season, but the opponents haven't been great. It doesn't sound like Jake Allen's between the pipes. Jake Allen's been the guy there for the Canadians. If it's not Jake Allen, even if it is Jake Allen, I expect Vegas to win the game. Maybe the under just hits if Jake Allen's between the pipes because he's been really, really good. And Montreal has actually played Vegas pretty good since they've been in the league. A bunch of wins against them. I was in Vegas T-Mobile Arena. I think it's almost 3 years to the day. It was Halloween night. Montreal went into to Las Vegas and had a W in overtime. But just this team isn't the same. I know they bounced them in the playoffs a couple years ago, but Vegas is playing really good hockey. Pietrangelo is back in the lineup, so I like him on the puck line at minus 105. It's just play for me, or at at plus 110, excuse me. It's a 2-unit play for me. I got Arizona to win in 60. It's another 2-unit play for me at minus 115 against the Chicago Blackhawks. I got the Dallas Stars on the puck line as well at plus 102 against the Columbus Blue Jackets. I gave a little bit of love in the DFS article when it came to the Dallas Stars tonight. And the Blue Jackets, they enter with a 2.86 expected goals against at 5-5 per 60. It's the 6th highest mark in the league. They've allowed the 10th most shots. They've allowed the 5th most shot attempts, and they've given up the 6th most shot attempts, the Blue Jackets, that is. So an opportunity here for Dallas at home, Jake Ottinger between the pipes. I think probably a low-scoring game. We could see Dallas break out for a couple goals, maybe 4-1. I like that top line. Rupe Hintz for shots, and I think the line in general will hit the score sheet a little bit. And sneaky, maybe Duchesne and Sagan and DFS. I have Vegas, Dallas, and Pittsburgh in 60. Parlay there at plus 360. I got Jake Gensel at over 3.5 shots at plus 124. And Jake Gensel, that line, in fact, they hit the score sheet twice, but Gensel, Crosby, and Brian Rust, they had 25 shot attempts and 20 shots in their last game. They were all over the Senators, but they just couldn't score any goals. Now a matchup here against the Ducks, who have taken the 3rd most penalties. So we could see a couple power plays here for the Pittsburgh Penguins tonight. And the Ducks rank 8th in shot attempts allowed at 5-5 per 60. So I'm not getting involved with the Pens on the puck line because the goaltending is spotty, but I do think they'll win in 60. That's why I have them in that parlay with Dallas and Vegas. But I really like Jake Gensel here for over 3.5 shots at plus 125. I like Sidney Crosby for 2 points at plus 175, and it does correlate well with Jake Gensel, but I think Brian Russ hits the score sheet tonight. His odds are at a decent little price, I think minus 130. I have a 2 units on Teuvo Teravainen for a point. We had 2 units on Teuvo for a point in the last game, and he scored a hat trick. I like this Carolina top line tonight. Seth Jarvis, Sebastian Aho, and Teuvo Teravainen. So plus 105 for Teuvo. Books are really sleeping on Teuvo. I mean, they're just not paying attention, I guess, at the moment. This trio in their last game, they had 7 points and 12 shots on goal. I mentioned Teuvo had the hat trick. He's got 7 goals and 8 points in 9 games. Why is he plus 105 for a point tonight against the Philadelphia Flyers, who allowed 7 goals in their last game against the Ducks? They look like the old Flyers there. They played well, but they look like their old selves. And Carolina getting healthier. Aho in the lineup, Svechnikov in the lineup. So I have Seth Jarvis for a point at minus 115. I have Teuvo Teravainen for an assist at plus 205, but the 2 units there for him to hit the score sheet at plus 105. I also have the Hurricanes in 60 at minus 120. I'm just reading all my plays in the FTN Bet Tracker. Happy Monday to you guys. I'll narrow it down with my top 5 if you want. Shea Theodore for a point at minus 135. Hintz for 3 shots at minus 130. Bo Horvat for 3 shots at minus 130. Brock Nelson for 3 shots at minus 135. And I am in on Bedard tonight in what is a softer matchup against Arizona. I've been fading him because the matchups, like he played Vegas twice, he played the Bruins. So even though he scored the other night here at plus 110, for him to have 4 shots against Arizona. My 2 favorite shot props would probably be Keller and DeBrincat, but they're too juiced to put into like a single entry. So on DraftKings, I put Keller and DeBrincat over 2.5 shots at plus 170. I think that the Blackhawks are sneaky tonight in DFS. The reason I think that is because Sorokin's a stud. We all know that. And he's a very good goalie. I don't think anybody likes to stack against Ilya Sorokin. It worked out for us the other night, but it was the Avs. The Avs, Mikko Rantanen, I put Mikko Rantanen, Makar, and McKinnon in one of my tournament lineups, and they were like 2% owned, like 6 combined. For those 3 guys, I know they're super expensive, but Larkin and DeBrincat are in top 5 in scoring. They played really good. And what I will say about the Islanders, so far at 5-5 per 60, courtesy of Natural Stat Trick, they've allowed the 4th most shot attempts and the 5th most shots, and no team has allowed more scoring chances at 5-5 per 60. Excuse me. Than the Islanders. So Sorokin's really saving their butt at the moment, right? But that to me is really telling. Like being in the top 5, 5th in shots, 4th in shot attempts, and number 1 in scoring chances allowed at 5-5 per 60. So maybe don't shy away. If you're playing in tournaments, you're playing more than 3 lineups. I like Sorokin tonight as a goalie because of those reasons, because he's a guy that could get the save bonus. He can rack up a bunch of shots and a bunch of saves tonight. But I think maybe Detroit is a little sneaky. I have my DFS my DFS stacks ranked like this. Vegas line number 1, because the Canadians taking a majority of the penalties tonight. I really like Caden Gooley in DFS. Blocking shots, a lot of ice time, really good player, man, and super cheap. He joins the rush as well. Maybe just Matheson's been great. I think he's going to play tonight, but Caden Gooley a little bit cheaper. And then I go Pittsburgh line 1. Those 20 shots and 25 shot attempts in the last week really checked some boxes for me. And again, the Ducks, one of the most penalized teams. Then I got the Stars line 1 against the Blue Jackets. Then I got Arizona. Schmaltz and Clayton Keller have combined for 16 points. Man, Barrett Hayton's going to break out tonight. He's got 22 shots. He's still in the first line. He's still in the first power play. What is happening? He still hasn't broken out yet. I think it's going to happen. The fact that Keller and Schmaltz have 16 combined points and Hayton hasn't done anything. It blows my mind, but he's still in that first line. He's still in that first power play. It's against the Blackhawks tonight. He's probably going to be low owned. I got Dursey in there as well. I like Carolina line 1 with Aho, Teravainen, and Seth Jarvis, and I like Tony DeAngelo with them. And then Mika Zibanejad, we wrote him up on Saturday as like a breakout candidate. He finally scored a goal. He broke out, and it comes in bunches for players, and it's come in bunches for Mika Zibanejad over the past couple of years. Man, once he gets going, he really does light the lamp. So I'm not crazy about the Rangers. I do have Kreider, Zibanejad, and Fox written up as a play here. Winnipeg, I thought they looked okay against the Canadians. There was no Hellebuck, so Hellebuck would be between the pipes, but the Ranger team is playing good. I think that they'll win the hockey game tonight on the money line, but maybe even if it's just Mika Zibanejad as a one-off or an anytime goal or over 2.5 shots. My contrarian plays would be the Red Wings line 1 because of the things I talked about, and the Seattle Kraken, which is actually not line 1, it is line 3, and it's a new shaped line in Seattle. It's Jared McCann, Yanni Gourde, and Eli Tolvanen. Yanni Gourde, a little bit of a bounce back or a revenge thing for him, sure. But the shooter on the team, the best shooter on the team is Jared McCann. So this is my reasoning behind it. And Jonas Johansson has got shutouts in back-to-back games. I think he'll be chalky tonight in DFS. The Kraken, last year, the only team that had a double-digit shooting percentage. And so far this year, it is completely flipped. It is completely flipped for them. They have a 5.36 shooting percentage at 5-5, which is the 3rd lowest mark in the NHL. And Johansson has the back-to-back shutout. So my thinking is in tournaments, people will ride Johansson, and I want to have a little bit of leverage here. So I think that McCann, Gourde, and Tolvanen, maybe with Vince Dunn, or maybe just having McCann, or just the trio forwards in your DFS lineup, you can get a little bit of leverage. What I will say about Tampa Bay is that they've allowed the 4th most shots at 5-5 per 60. So you're going to have, I'm not chasing the goalie with the large ownership percentage in Johansson. I think he's a sell high in season-long leagues. Vasilevsky will be back soon. You can ride this out if you want to, especially if you have Vasilevsky, but you could also sell high at the moment if you'd like to do something like that. But that line may be an underrated line to attack. And then Tippett, Couturier, and Atkinson. I mean, the Hurricanes, I think they had a shutout in their last game. They did play the Sharks. They haven't had great goaltending so far this season. And this line has been really good. They've been all over every single fantasy hockey waiver wire article. We talk about them a lot in Dangle Bet Sally. We had all three of them to pick up a point at plus 280 the other night. And that was against the Ducks. And I haven't even looked at the odds for those three guys to have a point tonight, but I would imagine the longer odds at 3-1. Atkinson is shooting the puck. Didn't play last year. Couturier didn't play last year. These are good players. Atkinson's a proven 30, 40 goal scorer. He's had like 20 goals, I think 7 times in his career, 200 plus shots. Tippett is got a lot to offer in bangers leagues. He's starting to be productive, and Sean Couturier is still one of the better two-way players in the NHL, in my opinion. So maybe consider some of those guys. But to wrap it up tonight, my top picks on the sides would be Rangers money line. Actually, my top picks in order would be Vegas puck line, Stars puck line, Coyotes in 60, Penguins in 60, Rangers money line. I like Gensel over 3.5 shots. I like Crosby over 1.5 points. I like Teuvo Teravainen for a point. I like Seth Jarvis for a point. I like Shea Theodore for a point. Rupe Hintz shots. And again, there's a whole lot more in the bet tracker. I always like to give a dog. We've been doing okay with dogs. And I think the dog that I would like to give tonight will be the Detroit Red Wings at plus 145. Or maybe even the Florida Panthers at plus 140. Brandon Montour, Aaron Ekblad. I don't think those guys are suiting up, but make sure you have them rostered because they did make the trip here. All right, we've gone pretty long. Bo Horvat, trade or drop. Probably a bad time to trade. He is shooting. That's why we have the shot prop. He is shooting the puck. So maybe wait it out a little bit. But I don't like to own any Islanders except for Sorokin. Dangle Bet Sally tomorrow. Set bet spike has been we haven't had an episode since week 1. Do you think Frisco has to panic a little bit after those losses? Yeah, just a little. And RIP Adam Johnson, RIP Matthew Perry. Yeah, we're gonna get out of here, guys. Thanks for taking the time to hang out. I think we've done it all. I see some people jumping in right now. We've gone too long. We got to bounce off some timestamps here in the YouTube section for some picks for tonight. We just went over some NHL waiver wire stuff. We'll have a time code that you can find it. If you are listening on iTunes and Spotify, you have a question at Chris Meaney, meanstreetsftn@gmail.com. Leave it in the comment section here. You're watching the replay, leave it in the comment section. Always circling back. Good luck tonight. Hopefully we get some winners here in terms of prop land. We got the Lions to win the game by double-digit points. We got Michael Mayer night tonight. 'Tis the season. Let's go. All right. Dangle Bet Sally tomorrow. Good luck on the ice. We'll talk to you guys soon. Cheers.